he was a bad guy. He may have been funded by shady people. So this whole theology comes.
So this guy is some Catholic who has a YouTube channel who pushes all this bullshit about the Catholic religion. It's the first church, probably of the wicked one, I would say, but not of Christ. Do you realize the Catholic Church literally did not want people to be able to read the Bible themselves? I mean, that's why they executed 2 people that were attempting to put it into English early on, but they didn't. It's in their history, they didn't. Because of control reasons and because, interpretations that they wouldn't like. So does that, right there, just on that alone, does that seem like it's that Christ resides in that church? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because it goes against everything that Christ was about. He wanted everybody to read his word. He said he was the teacher because he knew churches like that would raise up and they would be your leader. And he did not want that. And it's sad what happened in England because those kings had the Davidic line of David from the Bible eventually come to them. So their authority was over the papacy. God's never given the papacy a bit of authority. They give it all to themselves and make up whatever bullshit they want to make up. But they never hold themselves accountable, like they stood with Hitler. They make excuses for that. They do. This world helps that church make excuses so that they always get away with their bullshit. When really, if they stood with Christ, they would have taken accountability. Because they led everybody in England astray. And that's what tore everything apart. Then, while that Catholic element was demanding in England that there be religious tolerance, that wicked realized that the power moved to America. See, when Britain had all that power, it's because that Davidic power was over them for a long time. But then they lost it. Why? Because they let the damn papacy in, that's why. Because they already had the power within their lineage, because God had given it. But then when you start letting that in, and that becomes your holy father, no, God said, no, we're going to move on now. We're going to move on. We're going to raise up America now, and that's what happened. But so then when they realized, no, the power's in America, most especially after the revolution, us fighting Britain. That's why the Protestants, they saw this incoming of Catholics and thought, oh, shit. And they had every right to feel that way. They did. They did. They knew what they were talking about. But that's how we got, we have to have religious tolerance. Yeah. So, and what they've wanted all along is to have power over the people, no different than in England. Because they've never been about Christ, which is why they're always on the wrong side of Christ. Yet they get these useful idiots like this guy and others to do the bidding for them. I mean, look at how many the wicked one has doing the bidding for him. Candace Owens. And these people won't change, mark my words. It's not like they'll have some, a moment. No, they know who they serve. They have no shame. They have no shame. They don't care if you know they're liars. They know what their purpose is, and they're going to keep lying and saying, I serve Christ, when they know they don't. Even if the whole world, they don't have shame because they have no conscience. They don't. They know they're liars. They know they're manipulators. And it serves them if people don't figure out who they are. But even once people do, it's not going to change anything. But God's doing like God always does, because God's consistent. And just like with Pharaoh, he wanted Pharaoh to get, more, worse against the Israelites. And it wasn't because he wanted to, make it worse on the Israelites. But he wanted them to get harder. Because then God crushes them even more. And that's what God will do to that Catholic Church. And that is what God will do to all of these bad actors. Mark my words, because God's consistent. With JFK, that's, people were right. it's almost like the gates of hell blew open when JFK was elected because of everything that happened, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the CIA turning on the intelligence agencies, period, over time especially, turning on the American people. It's all been about wanting to destroy America. When the Davidic power was in England, they would have wanted to destroy England too. But that power came here, and God has kept it here, even with all this Catholic tolerance. I think because there's been enough people that have not let that Catholic have. It's gotten a lot of influence, but really because of the way our Constitution is, it can't get into like a kingship. You know what I'm saying? Where it can be in a kingship throughout many. That's what the people of England didn't want, was to have a continuous line of children, like, because what worried them is King James II was a Catholic, and when he had a son, they're like, oh shit, that son's now going to grow up, and we're going to have a line of Catholic dynasty, and oh boy, the Catholic Vatican wanted that more than anything, which is why they had William of Orange intervene. And so they got King James II out, and he fled to France or something. But anyway, that's what that problem is with all of that, is that these people, this church betrayed so many people on a mass level. They've always been, and that's even before being on the side of Hitler. They didn't stand with the Jews, eventually being, but they don't know the Bible. They had their own version of everything. That's why they didn't want it in English, because that's what told the people, what are you doing? I mean, that's like that a spiritual betrayal is like the worst kind of betrayal. So to then come along and try to claim you need to be tolerant of us. Well, the first thing you can do if you want people to be tolerant of you is take ownership and responsibility. The Catholic Church has never done that for anything, not even their massive historical child abuse. So they just don't. Every now and then they say something, but their deeds, their fruits don't change. Why? Because their fruits were never rooted with Christ to begin with. But that brings me back to the JFK stuff. It's like everything bad happened when JFK was elected. It's like the gates of hell blew open then. And people won't recognize that because people have put that man on a pedestal. But there's a reason that Trump put himself over the Kennedy Center as the chairman. And then he posted this, I think it was yesterday. Great nominees for the Trump Kennedy Center. Kennedy Center Awards. They will be announced Wednesday. Tremendous work is being done and money being spent on bringing it back to the absolute top level of luxury, glamour, and entertainment. It has fallen on hard times physically, but will soon be making a major comeback. So, and he's the chair. He assigned himself as chairman of the Kennedy Center. Now, here's the thing where I could see where Trump, not that he would be like a king, but a trait that King James I had, which was that he has many constituents he has to make happy, which is why the Puritans came here. They wanted more of that Catholic element removed from the Church of England, and King James I didn't do that. And not because I think he did not have any respect for the Catholic Church. He did not give them an inch. However, he also added these other constituents to think of. That's how I could see Trump being. Like, he'll never come out and tell you the truth about JFK, the Kennedys, and how they weren't on the side of America. They were serving the British aristocrats, the Catholic aristocrats, okay? Which is why people were worried about him becoming president. And, well, they were right. But will DJT ever come out and say that? No, no, he's not. He'll make it nicer again, make it legit because it is part of history. I don't necessarily agree with that, but again, you're never going to get everybody to see the truth. So that's what I would anticipate he'll do with this. That, even though he does tell you, and sort of, because why would he immediately, when he got in this time, appointed himself as chairman of that center, because he knew who Kennedys were.